Okay, everyone. I know I've told the story before, but it's a good story, and I'm going to tell it again. And it it sort of demonstrates the idea of serving God, even though you don't understand what you're doing, but it's true. One of the first Rebbe of Chabad had his name was Rabbi Shneur Zalman. He was the one who wrote the book the Tanya, and he was a very holy person and a genius. He knew the whole Torah, and he did amazing miracles. And uh, pupils his pupils were also miraculous people and geniuses in the Torah, all of them. But one of them was had a really very, how do you say, developed sense of humor. And his name was Rabbi Shmuel Munkas. And he was a genius in the Torah, just like all the others. And he was a very serious person and a very, a very devout person, etc. But he was also a very, how do you say, lively person. And like to give you an example, one day he hung himself upside down. Maybe it was the Purim or sometime, but there was like sort of a overhang or something over the Rebbe's door, and somehow or other he managed to get up on a chair and hang himself up. I heard upside down by his feet. The feet upside down. So everybody said, "What are you doing now? The Rebbe's going to come out and it'll be embarrassing." And he said, "Listen, in front of the shoemakers the store, he has a big sign with a shoe on it, and the in front of the fish store there's a big sign with a big picture of a fish on it. It says the Rebbe, he makes Chassidim, so there's a big sign with a Chassid hanging over it. That's the sign in front of the Rebbe. There's a Chassid that's going to hanging in front of his. Okay, there's other stories about him, but I want to tell this one story. Once the Hasidim made what's called a forbringen. It was a regular thing. In Chabad especially, they make a thing which is called a forbringen. What's a forbringen? Forbringen means everyone comes together, and they usually have vodka, and they have something to eat after the vodka called farbeisen. Usually it's bread or something like that. And because the vodka is very sharp, and they would sit and they would talk about serving God and and how to be more, how do you say, refine yourself to be more positive, to be more loving the Torah, loving God, loving your fellow Jew, loving your fellow man. Anyway, so they were these big geniuses. They were all geniuses people, and they were amazing. They were all talking wonderful things and ideas, and they were singing deep Hasidic nigunim. We've sung a few, and they ran out of farbeisen. They ran out of food to eat after drinking vodka. So they all pooled their money together. It was already 2, 3 in the morning, and they sent one person, or a couple of people, to go to the house of the butcher and to wake him up, and that he already always had some meat that was ready to eat that he sold. There's some stories where say it was a lung. The lung of the cow is permissible, but other places I read that it was the liver. I tend to say it was the liver, and I'll tell you why afterwards. So let's say it doesn't make that much difference really what type of, anyway. So they got the meat, and they brought the meat back, and they put it on the table on a big sort of a tray, and they cut it up on the tray that everybody could take a little piece, every piece of the liver after they made a l'chaim. As soon as they put it down, and this Rabbi Shmuel Munkas that I talked about, he picked up the tray, and they said, "What are you doing?" And he started lifting it up. He lifted it up, and he started sort of like dancing with it. He said, "Hey, come on, put it down. It's going to fall on the floor. It's going to get dirty." So he started dancing and spinning around and running around with it. And they said, "Stop it! Will you stop it? What are you doing?" We all, you can't hold your liquor. You're drunk. You can't hold your liquor. So, you know, that's your problem. It's not our problem. What are you going to? He ran around until he came to the window, and he opened up the window and he threw all of the meat out the window. Threw it out the window. Maybe there was a big pile of manure there, whatever it was, but he threw it out the window and he wrecked it. So they were all tremendously angry at him. What did you do a thing like that for? We haven't got any money left. Money is you can't just, doesn't grow on trees. They were all very angry at him. What are you doing? You can't do a thing like that. What are you throwing? You wrecked the whole thing up. They were all very angry at him. All of a sudden, they opened up the door, and the butcher came running in and said, "Don't eat the meat. Don't eat the meat. That meat came from, it was not kosher. It came from a not kosher cow. It came from a not kosher cow." And it was put aside. It must be that somehow or other got mixed up. Maybe my wife was tired. She was asleep, tired, and she gave them, "Don't eat the meat." So they realized there was a big miracle. I said, "Wow, you did a big miracle." And what you knew, how did you know that the meat was not kosher? When you're trying to do miracles in front of us, just say, "I have a feeling the meat is not kosher." Just say it, right? Why can't you just say, just like let's check this meat out. I got an intuition or something. You're doing things on your own. What are you, some sort of a rebbe? And they all got very angry at him. They all were screaming at him and yelling at him. And he said, "No." The story also says that they wanted to take out a physical punishment on him, whatever. Anyway, so he said, "Don't yell at me." He says, "It's not because I'm holy. It's not because I have some sort of a spiritual abilities that nobody has." The last time, or one of the times that I was in to the Rebbe in a private audience, it's called Yechidut. You go to the Rebbe and the Rebbe wakes up something inside of your soul just by a regular conversation, but something happens inside of you that's called Yechidut. The Rebbe, you have to understand, the Rebbe is like Moses. Understand? He has a whole different awareness of the world than all the rest of the Jews do. The Jews are God's chosen people, but Moses is the one that awakens this inside of the Jews. So that's what the Rebbe was. So he said, one time I was by the Rebbe in Yechidut. That's when this arousal occurs. And the Rebbe told me that anything that if I really, really want to do it, I shouldn't do it. Any mundane thing in the world that I want to, if I really, really want to do any mundane thing in the world, whatever it is, put on my shoes, brush my teeth, if I really want to do it, I shouldn't do it. Because as soon as that liver came into the meat, come into the door, I had this tremendous desire that I had to eat. I was suddenly so weak and so hungry. I'd never been so hungry in my life. I really, really wanted just to take a little piece of the meat. I realized those are the words of the Rebbe. If I really want to do something, I shouldn't do it. Something's wrong. And therefore, I defied my urges. They have to remember this is a very holy person. This is a person, he's not, giving into his desires all the time. He's not interested in pleasing himself. He'd be willing to give up all the money that he had, whatever, to do a commandment or something. And suddenly he said, because I felt that I had a tremendous desire for this, therefore I stopped myself from doing it because the Rebbe told me not to do it. And that's why I threw it out the window, because I realized it must be something that's really, really wrong with this meat if I have such a tremendous desire to do it. So here we have an example of going against your nature, against your certainty, on the basis of pure faith. Against all of your feelings, against all of your intuitions, against all of your urges, against all to do what's right, because the Rebbe said that that's what's right. And that's the whole, what we just finished learning in the speech that we just finished learning by the Rebbe, that's the whole idea of counting the Omer. That's the whole idea of the exile, the terrible, terrible exile that we've been in for the last 3,338 years. That's all just trying to control our urges and do, what we're supposed to do, count the Omer, make light in the world, and not to give into the darkness of the world. And then there's going to be a tremendous revelation of godliness, which is going to be even greater than the giving of the Torah, because it's going to be permanent everywhere in the world. Have a good Shabbat with Mashiach now. Thank you very much for tuning in. God willing, on Sunday, we will resume learning at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll have 2 classes, Devar Malchut and Lakuti Torah, with God's help, and a story, and God willing also Yom Yom. Thank you very much for coming. God bless you all, and see you on Sunday. Shalom uvracha, Mashiach now.